There's no shortage of AR-15 style rifles on the market, and everyone has their own ideas and opinions on what the best brands and the models are. For under $1,000, you can actually get a pretty good rifle. I had an IWI with a cold hammer forged barrel. It was all mil-spec. The trigger was pretty awful, but that's an easy upgrade that you can install yourself. When you start looking at the $1,500 to $2,000 price range, you really open things up to a lot of other manufacturers like SIG, BCM, FN, even some of the Daniel Defense offerings. And the prices really go up from there. You can easily spend $3,000 on a really nice shooting Radian. There's also BG Defense Type A rifles. And then there's also, of course, guns that are based on the AR platform, but are not compatible with AR style lowers or uppers. And everything's proprietary. We're looking at stuff like the SIG MCX, the HK MR556, and things like that. The thing you have to understand about ARs is it really does come down to personal preference. There's so many good options out there today that it's hard to say that, you know, one rifle is a better option over another, but this video is going to be a little bit more of why you might consider spending a little bit more money and getting a mid-tier AR, or spending a little bit less money if you're looking at something really premium, a little bit more expensive, and just buy a mid-tier rifle instead, and maybe spend the rest of that money on accessorizing it, your optics, your ammo, training, things like that. I'm going to go over my rifle, and this is my rifle. I've had this for over a year now. I put well over 1,000 rounds through it. I've had multiple optics, different setups on it, and then my cousin is going to go over his FN-15, which is a tactical 2. So this is an FN-15 Plok. Originally, this did come with B5 Systems furniture, which I obviously swapped out for BCM just because I like the ergonomics of BCM a little bit better. I installed a Radian Raptor charging handle. It originally had a mil-spec standard charging handle. I just like the Raptors a little bit better. I believe that the new FN-15s in this price bracket come with a Radian Raptor now, so that's really nice to see. They're also starting to use FN manufactured grips and stocks, kind of like SIG does. Again, you can swap those things out, but I believe that's just what they're using on the current models. If you look at their more budget-oriented model, the Guardian, that might still be mil-spec, I'm not really sure. All the controls on here are not ambidextrous. They're just standard, nothing is extended or anything crazy like that. But the tolerances on this gun throughout are really good, and all the controls just feel really nice. So I don't have any complaints personally about that. The rail, I believe, is made by Hodge Defense, and it uses what FN calls the Plok system. I've never actually taken this rail off, but they do provide instructions on how to do that. I think that this rail feels great. It's a little bit fatter compared to some of the other AR-15s out there. This barrel is also kind of a heavier contour. It's definitely thicker than my SCAR 16 barrel, so that could be why they made this handguard a little bit bigger, just to allow proper venting so that you don't burn yourself or anything. I haven't had any issues with that. This vertical grip on here is from Samson, and it's just a short little stubby so that I can hold the gun like this and kind of pull it into me instead of doing a C-clamp. The light is a Surefire Scout Mini, and it's on an Arisaka M-LOK mount that's kind of at an angle, so it keeps it really nice and tight to the rail. Since this is a little bit fatter of a rail, it just fits up there really nice. And this is actually a factory FN flash hider. It is a 3-prong, so it looks very similar to the Surefire flash hiders, but it is not a Surefire. I do think that it works really well, and it just looks really good on this gun. My light does have a pressure pad on it with a on and off and a momentary switch. These panels are from BCM, again, just adding a little bit of texture there. Added some QD mounts on there. The stock already has them built in. And this optic is a Leupold Mark III HD. It is a 1.5 to 4 by 20. And it has what they call the fire dot reticle, which is a pretty cool reticle. I'll throw a picture up if I can find it. Now, the standard FN trigger in these is actually really, really nice. It's not like a standard mil-spec trigger, and I'm not actually sure what weight they break at, but they feel really crisp and really nice. I did swap mine out with a Geissele SSAE because I already had that trigger. As I mentioned, I had an IWI before this, and the trigger on that was not great. When I got rid of the IWI and I bought this, I actually put the FN trigger in the IWI and I put the Geissele trigger in this. Some of the things that this Plok, the Tactical 2, and a lot of the new FN-15s are all going to have in common, they're all going to have a relatively similar barrel to this. They're all going to be cold hammer forged, 1-in-7 twists, and all the gun gas systems are going to be DI. So with 62 grain or heavier bullets, you're going to be getting extremely good accuracy out of this gun.
This is my FN-15 TAC 2. I've had it for over 3 years and I like it a lot. I've seen no reason to upgrade. This rifle has Magpul furniture on it. It's plenty good enough, pretty good trigger overall. I don't see any reason to upgrade it. I like the rail on it quite a bit. I like the Trijicon ACOG, high quality optic, military use for many years. It's got a Steiner light on it. It's got the push pad on it and the button, and I do have backup sights. This rifle is quite accurate. It will shoot MOA at 100 yards, and when you put a good optic on here, such as the ACOG, it is achievable.
Reliability has also been great. I'm not a big fan of cleaning my gun after I shoot it every single time, and I know in a DI gun that gets dirty a little bit faster, it's really important to clean that carbon off right after you shoot it and make your life a little bit easier. I was very stubborn with that, and I shot this thing quite a bit before I even did my first cleaning. It had been lubricated, it had been oiled, but I was just kind of shooting it to see how long it would go before I had a malfunction. So several hundred rounds in, I ironically had recently also switched from using primarily Magpul, which is the magazine that comes with this gun, and Lancer magazines, to buying these metal SCAR 16 magazines from FN. So you'd think FN mil-spec 5.56 magazine, it should work just fine in this gun, but it did not. Unfortunately, I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I numbered all of my magazines and honestly just did like a ton of shooting. I was having tons of double feeds out of this gun, and it was just a huge nightmare. I called FN's customer service. What they recommended is, hey, we ship the gun with a Magpul. You can try the Magpul magazines. They also made some recommendations on what kind of ammo I'm shooting, what kind of ammo they'd recommend using. Off the top of my head, I don't even remember exactly what kind of ammo that was. Eventually, what I found as the culprit was a very weak factory buffer spring. And this could have happened way earlier on, but the spring tension in these FN magazines is a lot stronger than the Magpul magazines. I actually had a friend that had a brand new FN-15 TAC 3, and out of the box, it just was not running reliably. He now swaps out the buffer springs with Geissele Super Duties in every single gun, and you can actually feel the difference when you pull back the charging handle that there's a lot more tension back there. I don't know if FN's ever fixed this, but to my knowledge, even the current production FN-15s just have a slightly softer buffer spring. So that might be the one thing that you consider swapping out on this. Otherwise, the little things that I've done here, you might want to add a light, you might not need a light. Really, for what you pay for this, depending on if you get on sale and what you pay, but I bought this during peak COVID, so I believe it was around like $1,600 is what these were going for, and later you could find them for a lot less than that. So my first AR was a very basic, as I mentioned, just a standard mil-spec rifle. And what were your thoughts with my IWI that I had?
The big difference I would say is this rail. I really like the rail on this. It was a big upgrade versus that. You could just tell it was a little bit higher quality gun. Not to say that the other AR was necessarily bad, but if you want a little bit more of a premium model, the extra money is worth it.
The ergonomics on the FN-15 is definitely serviceable out of the box. You really don't have to change anything on this if you don't want to. Like you mentioned, he's got the factory FN trigger in his. Yours is more of like, almost like a metallic or gloss, where this is more like a satin FDE, but yours doesn't look like it has like any scratches on it.
Yeah, it looks good overall. So.
At the farm, we've like thrown these down at the sandbar in the sand and kind of abused them, put them on four-wheelers and stuff like that. They just hold up super well. It really kind of begs the question, unless you need a gas piston system, that there's not a whole lot of reason to spend more money than this on a rifle. And you know, you just get a ton of accuracy. And if you do want to upgrade things over time, like the charging handle, like the trigger, you can certainly do all of those things. And really do think hard about if you're going to be happy with a budget-oriented rifle, or if you're going to ultimately want something in this price bracket, something that's just a little bit nicer built than, let's say, a PSA just comes to mind. Like a $400, $500, $600 AR. Are you going to be happy with that, or are you going to lose money on it and buy something like this? Kind of like I had my IWI, and I ultimately ended up like this, whereas Leah's just stuck with this same rifle since the very beginning. So I did say I was going to say why you might buy a rifle in this price range as opposed to buying something that's entry level or buying something at a premium price point. So my cousin actually bought his FN before I bought my FN. My first rifle was just a very basic plain mil-spec AR, and we took them out shooting. They were identical. We had the same aim point, red dots on them even. And at 100 yards, the accuracy, both cold hammer forged barrels, it was very similar, using the same ammo, but ultimately just handling his rifle alone, I could immediately feel the difference in quality. Now, musicians can do this with a guitar. They'll pick up a really nice Gibson Les Paul, and even though it might not sound a whole lot different on a recording to the regular ear than a $400 Ibanez or a Schecter or something like that, when a musician picks up that guitar, it just feels like quality. It makes them want to play. Just like picking up this gun, it just feels amazing. It makes you want to shoot. It makes you want to train. There's nothing wrong with my mil-spec AR, but when I picked up an FN for the first time, I could just feel the difference in quality. If you do what I did and you buy that cheap AR and then you shoot your buddy's AR, maybe he's got a BCM or something that he brings out, I'll tell you, you're going to fall in love with that gun. You're going to sell your gun probably at a loss, and then you're going to seek out his firearm. I would just wait, save up a little bit more money, and find the gun that you really like and buy it. It was peak COVID, and I walked in my gun store. I saw this FDE and knew it was an FN from across the room. I immediately asked him to take the gun down. They had just put it up there earlier that day, and I tried negotiating with the price, and he was like, no, this is an FN. I'm not going any lower on this rifle. I actually walked away from it. I drove home, and as soon as I got home, I was with my brother at the time, and I was like, dude, I really should have bought that rifle. I dropped him off at the house. I turned right back around, drove into town, and I bought it. I walked out the door with this gun. Now, why do I say that you should buy this instead of something even more premium? Well, if I said that about the FN compared to a budget entry-level rifle, wouldn't I say the same if I picked up a Radian or something like that? And here's my argument to that. A Radian is a very soft shooting gun. It is an extremely nice rifle, and if you have the budget for it, I would say try one out, because that might be exactly what you want. But on the flip side, once you get to a certain point, can the build quality get any better? Can you get a better shooting barrel? If you're sub MOA already, I mean, how much more accurate do you really need to get? If your finish holds up and you think it looks great, what are you really getting for that extra money? Type A Rifles builds everything to order, and they'll custom Cerakote your gun for you. You can do whatever color combination you want. You can have them even order a custom color. If you want a hot pink AR, they'll make it for you, and it'll be a fantastic rifle. Would you rather have that really nice premium rifle and then throw like a $500 optic on it, or an EOTech or something like that? Or would you rather save a little bit of money and buy a rifle like this, and then you maybe put like a Night Force NX8 on it? Obviously, I didn't put a Night Force on there, but I'm just saying, if you had the budget to buy a $3,000 rifle and instead you bought about a $1,500 rifle, you could also buy 1,000 rounds of ammo, you could buy a really nice light, you could buy maybe a nicer optic than you had planned on buying before. So that's something that I would consider is, do you really need to buy that more premium rifle?